Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam and this is a Sweet Betsy bush. Sweet Betsy is a very interesting shrub. It's actually a native to the eastern US. It's extremely cold hardy. It can actually grow in zone 4 to 9, so it covers a vast area this plant can be grown in. This plant goes by a lot of different names. It's always been an interesting plant to sell over the years. I have a space and have had a space over the years at the North Carolina State Farmers Market in Raleigh. And older folks will come in and see this plant, and it always comes with a story about their childhood. These fragrant flowers that are on it, which are this beautiful maroon color, are very fragrant. And I'll talk about fragrance in a minute on these. They're very fragrant, and people used to have all kinds of uses for them. They would put them in their pockets to go to school, so it had some perfume to, on them. That was their version of perfume. They would put these flowers in a little satchel and put it into their clothes drawers to keep their clothes smelling fresh and that kind of thing. All kinds of uses. And like I say, older folks in the Southeast who had these on the farms they grew up in or the communities they grew up in all have very, very fond memories of this plant. It's fallen out of favor a little bit over the years. People who look for native plants are always looking for this plant, but it grows a little bit gangly, and so as lots have gotten smaller and houses have gotten bigger, there's not as much room for plants that don't conform to what we have in mind for landscaping. So fallen out of favor a little bit, but I do sell quite a few of them over the course of a year at a farmer's market to, like I said, mostly older folks and folks that are seeking out native plants. This plant goes by a lot of different names. It's kind of a funny thing. Sweet Betsy is what I've always called it, and my family members have always called it. I hear it called Sweet Bubby. That one's always very funny. I think that's further east in North Carolina and down in South Carolina. I think a lot of people call it that. It goes by Carolina Allspice, Spicebush, just a lot of different names you may hear this plant called by. Like I said, it's very cold hardy, grows a little bit gangly, can end up 6 to 10 feet in height. Most of the branches are very vertical, so it doesn't end up very wide, except for it will sucker in time. And this one right here has got a couple suckers on it already. So that colony can get wider and make it look like the shrub has gotten wider. But those little suckers on the bottom can easily be controlled. They're not in a big hurry. They come up in the spring typically when the plant's leafing out and can quickly be cut off. So it's easier to control than you might think. But if you don't do it for several years, they can kind of be hard to clean up. I've always loved this plant. One issue though is that there's a lot of variability in the fragrance on this plant, and a lot of nurserymen have this conversation a lot. It really drives us crazy because you can grow a crop of these and get very little fragrance on any of the ones that you've grown, and then you can grow another crop and they're just amazingly fragrant, and just from one to the next, it's just hard to know. There's always been a lot of variability in the fragrance, and it seems like as we've taken rooted cuttings on them over the years, maybe people have not been thinking about the plant they were taking cuttings off of being fragrant, and we've lost fragrance over time. So if you're buying one of these, I would encourage you to buy it in the spring when it's in flower and you can actually smell one, and make sure the one you're getting is fragrant. Or alternatively, you can take one of these suckers off the bottom after they've matured a little bit from a neighbor's or somebody that's fragrant, and that way you're ending up with a fragrant one. I'll take cuttings on this one. This one happens to be fragrant, and I'm going to take some cuttings on these in my propagation series in the spring, so I know I'm taking cuttings off a fragrant plant. There are several new cultivars of Sweet Betsy out now, and it's so funny because one of the selling points has been these new varieties have stabilized the fragrance, and it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. I've had several of them at my garden center, and some I can smell and some I can't. So same thing going on there. Just make sure that the one you're getting is fragrant. Beautiful foliage on this plant. It's basically deer proof, gets almost no pest whatsoever, and puts on the biggest show you have ever seen in the fall. This is the brightest yellow foliage. I'm going to put it over here on my wood line over here, and I'm going to see it blooming in the spring. It'll be fragrant, and then it'll disappear into the edge of the woods over there. And then in the fall, it'll just get bright, bright yellow and really stand out against that wood line. So that'll be quite nice. These are, like I say, low maintenance industrial plants. It will get a little gangly. It belongs on the edge of your property somewhere. Wouldn't make a good foundation plant at all. Sweet Betsy would definitely prefer a moist, well-drained soil, like some sort of sandy loam. I definitely don't have that in my yard, so I'm going to leave it elevated a little bit when I plant it. I'm not going to over mulch it. I'll water it in well when I plant it, and then I'll probably just leave it alone. This is not a plant that's going to need a lot of ongoing watering. There is some root competition up along my wood line up here, so I may need to go back and water it a few times in the future if it's dry. But this plant will do a pretty good job of competing with those trees. Honestly, this is a full sun to part shade plant. The area I'm putting it in is going to get about 8 hours of direct sun and then go into the shade late in the afternoon. That should be perfect for it. It's spring when the Sweet Betsy is going in the ground, so I will fertilize it now just once in the spring with some sort of slow release fertilizer. And also, if it needs any pruning or any suckers removed or anything like that, I would wait until after it finishes blooming in the spring. It'll be several years before I need to do any pruning on this one, and I actually have room in this area for it to get 8 or 9 feet tall, so I may never have to do any pruning on it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for future videos.